Okay, my name is Howard Eber, and I am an alcoholic, and my co-host is
Hey,
Hello, Kat. And we are very proud to have our guest facilitator from Louisville, Kentucky, our friend Elizabeth. Take it away, Liz.
thank you. Hi, my name is Elizabeth. I'm an alcoholic. Today we are on page 87, and I'm going to read the paragraph. We're at the bottom. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the right thought or action. We constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, "Thy will be done." We are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. And I love this paragraph because for one thing, okay, so I've been sober since January 3rd, 1988, 37 years. But for many years, I couldn't get the pause. I didn't know how. I didn't know if you guys were getting it, but I couldn't get it. I didn't know how to get it. I was also diagnosed with ADHD in 2008. Had three kids, one with special needs. I was a single mom. There was a whole long period of time where these three children were at three different schools. There's two dads, and life was insane. It was just constant. If you've been in that lifestyle of being super busy. It's oh my gosh, we left the dress shoes at dad's. Oh my gosh, we need a poster board. It's 10 o'clock at night. You know, I mean, just constant, right? It never ended. One time I remember I wrote my dad like a run-on like a sentence full or a paragraph full of run-on sentences just to tell him what I had dealt with that week because he didn't get it. And I thought if you had my life, you'd be crazy too. And I was a mom who yelled at her kids. I was often short. I didn't know also that I had a problem with processing information that was coming at me, too much coming at me because I wasn't diagnosed until I was 42 years old. But I didn't know. Just like when I always had excuses for everything I did. Even when I drank, I always had excuses for why I got drunk that time and why this didn't work out and I made a bad decision. It was always somebody else's fault. It was the same thing in sobriety. I would see this and I would hear about the pause. And I just thought, why can't I get that? That was the one thing I really noticed. I didn't notice a lot of stuff. I didn't notice that I didn't have conscious contact. Like there's a lot of things I didn't notice, but I did notice that I didn't have the pause because I was constantly snapping at people. If they dared to walk up and interrupt me while I was working or something, I would feel it too. I would feel this tension inside, just this constant, dis-ease. I love that. The dis-ease of the disease. Right. And what I've come to find out in the last 5 years since getting online and hearing some different messages about how to actually work this program as a design for living throughout my life, like every day, all day, not just once a day, not just at night, not just in the morning, but all day. One thing that I've learned about myself is that I have to seek that pause. I have to look for it. And one of the ways I've been able to find it is by really practicing my step 3 decision and putting aside anything, all of my plans and designs. So many things don't need me to think about them. That was like a revelation. My problems don't need me to think about them. Literally. I don't need to think about it. I may need to collect more information about something. I may need to take an action about something, but I don't need to sit around and just, ponder dilemmas. And that's all I ever did. The solution of my problems was where I got my security from. I was a problem solver. I'm a great employee. Give me a problem, I'll solve it. But it kept me blocked. It kept me everywhere but here all the time. I was drained. You can look up a Dr. Burns Brady in Louisville, actually. We all grew up with Burns. Burns has some great information about the medical aspect of alcoholism. He is a doctor who got into addiction medicine. And he said that one of the things that alcoholics have in common with other addicts is a dopamine problem. So that's one of those feel-good chemicals that tells me I'm okay. Everything's okay. It's okay. But as an alcoholic, when I run around thinking about everything that's not here in this moment, I drain those chemicals out. Now, what have I got for you? I'm agitated. I'm frustrated. I used to say that all the time. I'm frustrated. Something's frustrating me. I was always frustrated. But the funny thing, when I read this sentence, we pause when agitated or doubtful. I realized I was always agitated and I was never doubtful. I'm so arrogant. I always think I'm right and everything I'm doing is right. And I don't know I'm agitated because I was agitated forever. I was always agitated in my life, like all the time. So I didn't know the difference. I remember when I first got sober and I came in here. Oh, there was this newcomer meeting. You did not want to sit near the door because newcomers can't sit still. They're up and down, up and down. I've got long legs, so people would have to walk past. I'd have to shrink my legs in near the chair. It was super annoying. I always ran late too, so I ended up sitting near the door a lot. So I had this whole thing repeat itself. And I remember when I was new, I would see these people that were able to sit still and be calm. I was like, am I going to be like that? That's weird. They seem kind of boring. I didn't know it was serenity. I didn't know it was peacefulness. I didn't know, and as I have learned to not be everywhere but here. And the thing is, like I said, I have to look for the pause. I have to be in enough pain. Page 60, be convinced, the first requirement, be convinced that a life run on self-will can hardly be a success. I am running around uncomfortable. I am running around frustrated. I'm running around restless, irritable, discontented when I don't practice this stuff. And practice is such an important word for me because, like I said, it doesn't come naturally. What comes naturally is to solve problems, is to think about the future, think about the past, think about the 50 million things that I think that I need to be thinking about. And I don't. I don't need to think about any of that stuff at all. We consider our plans for the day. We talked about that last time. Only the day, not tomorrow, not 3 weeks from now. If there's something I need to do, like buy a plane ticket for a trip I'm going on, well, yeah, that's something I can do today, right? But I don't have to worry about the trip I'm going on if it's in 3 weeks. I'll worry about it in 3 weeks. So practicing this, the agitation comes from thinking, everything comes from my thoughts and my attitude. So little is about what's actually happening. I have a friend says, I'm so glad I'm not suffering from what's not happening anymore. And I can relate to that, you know, because right now, right here, right now, we're all together in this meeting. I have everything I need right now, everything. There's nothing I'm missing out on right this minute because I'm with you and I'm sharing the message of Alcoholics Anonymous from my own experience, strength, and hope. And that's amazing. It's amazing that I'm sitting here. It's amazing that I'm alive. I drove in blackouts. I can be so grateful for that instead of thinking about things that maybe aren't going the way that I want. But I had to start to see, and once I started to practice, being in the moment, not thinking about the things that didn't have answers or that there was some discord or something's going on, I started to have a peaceful mind. And then I wanted to have a peaceful mind. I liked it. It's like, wow, this is cool. I'm not constantly, because when I was constantly thinking about everything, if Dina called me, I didn't have time to answer her call. If Andy interrupted me, I'd get short with him. I didn't have enough of that peacefulness, that brain chemistry to be present in the moment and handle things that came. When they talk about match calamity with serenity. And I think I told a story about that a couple weeks ago. I had a situation that was chaotic, and the next day I wasn't tired. Like, why am I not exhausted? This normally would have put me in bed for 3 days, right? And it says we don't tire so easily because I'm staying in the moment. I'm staying in the day. When I'm running around trying to make life suit me, I get exhausted. And let's go through this. Yeah, and I was never doubtful about anything. I always thought I had all the answers. I'm so smart, don't y'all know? God, I've met so many people smarter than me since getting online. I'm amazed, and also humbly realize I'm really maybe a Tuesday crossword person. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. Now it's recorded, too late. But I used to think I was so smart all the time and I had all the answers. I needed to think that because I was self-reliant. My whole life I was self-reliant. I was the oldest. I had to take care of my little sister. My dad said you should know better, so I better know better. I need to figure it out. So every decision that I make, I'm like in a situation now where I'm waking up to some negative things that I didn't want to see because I wanted to believe in my decisions. I wanted to ignore that it was a bad decision. That's how much I'll be in self-delusion because I want to think I'm right, because that's where I get my security. When I shift that security and that dependence, that reliance to a higher power, I don't need all that anymore. I don't need to be the smartest one in the room. I get to hang back and let other people step into, like in my group, it's great. I've done less for that group than I have. I mean, I did a lot a while back, but now other people are doing it. Thank God. It's so great. I get to hang back and just be helpful when needed and let them run things and do things that need to be done. And God, it's beautiful. All right, let's see. Okay, and it says, and we ask for the right thought or action. Well, I love the word ask. I don't know about some of you, but if any of you are like me, I have found that over time, a lot of the defects of character fall away, but some of them are tenacious. They're like, hey, still here. Here's a defect of character, not going away. Hi. And then the other thing, I don't even like them anymore. I have something going on in my life that's causing me to have a lot of rage and anger, and I hate it. That used to be comfortable for me, especially if I could be right about everything and write some. I'm one of those people, like, it's a good thing that I'm trying to live a spiritual life, because I'm like one of those people that could write the letter to the editor, and just cut everybody to shreds. I mean, I should have been an attorney or something. I'm really good at arguing. Um, I don't want that today. I don't want any of that. It's so painful to feel those feelings. I don't want to feel them anymore. They don't have anything to offer me. And so I turn to God. Please help me. What is my right thought or action today? What is it? I'm going to tell you all a quick story. I grew up with bullies. Did I tell this? Did I tell this yet? I can't remember from week to week what I said, so forgive me. But I was bullied as a child. I don't like bullies. I don't want to be nice to them. And in AA, we're supposed to be nice to people, right? So I'm in a situation with somebody, and I don't know what to do. I'm like, I know I have to be nice. I don't really want to be. I'm asking people for feedback. Some people are saying, oh, it sounds like that woman has outside issues. You don't have to deal with her. I was like, ooh, I like that answer. And then I called this lady named Texas T, and she said, it sounds like that woman wants your friendship and approval. Have you thought about just giving her everything she wants? And I'm telling you what, if I didn't think I had an ego 1 second before she said that, boy, did I hear it next. First it said, ugh, can I pretend like I didn't have that call? The next one started with a letter F. The next thought did. And then the third thought was, how long before I want to drink if I'm not nice to her? Now, how twisted is that thought? This is 100% deal, right? It's not half measures. Do I believe in this? Am I going to follow this 100% so that I can stay here? Um, and I remembered that word, that we have entered the world of the spirit. And I love that phrase, because it means that if I'm in the world of the spirit with God, it doesn't matter how she acts towards Elizabeth. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't. I'm not getting my security from her or what she does, or anything about that situation. And I can ask God, what can I do? And I'm going to tell you, I've had situations, where I have done all the work and still no relief. And then I'm mad because then I want to manage my spiritual experience. How come I'm not feeling better yet? I've done everything I'm supposed to do. It's so maddening. I call my sponsor. Why isn't this working? She said, just keep doing the work. I had a situation with a family member, and I wrote inventory after inventory, and oh my God, and it just wasn't getting better. And and my sponsor said, just keep doing the work. And she meant all the work. Do all the work. Just do it. And then trust God. And then you know what? One day I just had a different attitude towards this woman. And it surprised me. It was earlier this year. And it was at a family funeral. And I looked at her, and something about my heart just softened. I saw she looked uncomfortable. And I started praying for her, and I meant it. And I was so shocked. And the people who know the whole story, I'm like, you're not going to believe this. I was praying for, this woman. They were like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So I have to ask for the right thought and action. I have to pray for it. And then I have to wait. Okay, remember when I said I had ADHD? We don't like to wait. I also got left alone a lot. Was the last one picked up from school. Waiting is really uncomfortable for me. I don't like to wait. And I think it's Polly P. She says, "My God is so slow," you know? But you know what? I've learned to do that. I've weathered the discomfort of doing it. When I noticed sometime in the last few years, after finding this group in 2020 and learning a lot more about what alcoholism looks like on me today, from other people with decades of sobriety who were talking about their thinking and how it just blocks them all day long. It's thinking, 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 thinking. I'm like, I'm doing that too. Um, and I realized I answered every question and filled in every blank and solved every problem myself. I didn't give God any time. And I think I mentioned the Emmett Fox thing and the not do not forswear thyself and all this stuff about just waiting for God to chime in and getting quiet. The pause, of course, right? Which is what we're talking about is the pause. And just and what happens is the answer that comes feels like the right answer once it comes. If it's not here yet, I don't need to worry about it. It's okay. And so I turn and I look at the other parts of the program I can practice in the meantime while I'm waiting. Usually helping others helps me get me out of myself. I'm always asking for the sponsees. Like, call me, tell me what's going on with you. I need to get out of myself. Come on. I need you. I need them more. And it says we constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. Now remember that step 11 is praying for God's will. And that takes a lot of trust. After I finish speaking, I'll share a link. There's a thing, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. It's the Mark H. and Dave F. Big Book Study, Fellowship of the Spirit, something they did in 2001. And it has a page called the Second Step Proposition. And it's, do I believe that my higher power is going to take care of this? Do I? And you know what's funny? I'm so hard-headed and so full of fear. God's taken care of me every single time. Every time. But I think, nope, it's not going to work this time. Not this time. No, no, no. No, no. I'm going through a transition, as I've mentioned, and it's been very uncomfortable. And there have been times I was in rage yesterday. It's just like the emotions are all over the place. But I know deep down, I know I'm going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. I didn't always have that assurance in recovery or before. I lived in so much fear and I just trusted when people told me it's going to be okay. They would say things like, it'll be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. And trite little things like that would kind of make me mad sometimes. But, I hung on to those things. So if anybody's going through a hard time or going through fear, people say you can borrow my higher power. My higher power has always shown up for me, even when things, I like to joke. Listen, I'm not religiously educated very well because my mom, she was Catholic and she got tired of, I don't know, she just didn't take us to church very much, but I knew the basics, and I knew that Eve ate an apple and now we all have to work for everything. I don't know what you subscribe to, but it's a funny, to me, it's like, yeah, we got to work for it, right? And here's where, in a minute, he talks about, let's see. And thy will be done. That humbly saying to ourselves, and thy will be done, that's about humility. I'm lucky to be alive. I have a deadly disease that wants to kill me. Am I willing to go to any lengths? Am I willing to say, okay, I'm not God anymore? There's a page in chapter 4 that says, I forget how it's worded, but it's like, can you believe in the idea that you're not the highest power? And some people say it sarcastically that only alcoholics need to be asked that question. Can you believe that there's a power greater than you? Do I really think I'm the greatest power? And sometimes I'm furious about the fact that I'm not. I get so mad at God. Why is this happening? I've been through times where, and I'm sure we all have, right? It's like, I don't like this. I don't. There's something called radical acceptance. And what it means is that no matter what is happening, the faster I can accept the reality of it, the faster I can be at peace. It doesn't mean that I have to like it. Acceptance does not mean like. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to have grief or anger or any of these other feelings, but I can take that one part off. If I can say, okay, thy will be done. You are God, I am not. I'm a, those posters where it says you're a speck in the universe, right? I'm a speck. Hey, speck, you're a speck, I'm a speck. It's all we are, right? I'm not in charge. Higher power doesn't come and tell me what his plans are. He's not telling me that. I love to speculate about what the God's will was in a situation. Sometimes, just as a hobby, it's like look back and go, what was the purpose of this? And sometimes I can see, some stuff, but I love in the there's the whole I love the step 7 and the 12 and 12 about humility. I was talking about it earlier today about it just really goes into what humility is about. Being right-sized. I want to be there today because it's too painful not to be. It's just too painful to sit around and think about what I wish were happening instead of what's happening. I have that going on in my life today. The last time I went through something similar, I was in non-reality and non-acceptance for a lot longer, and it was a lot more painful. And I was victimized by that wish that things were different. I felt like a victim too. I don't today. I'm having a lot of difficult emotions going through what I'm going through, but I'm 10 times better because I'm accepting and I'm looking for God every hour, every day. And I'm using all the tools of this program. I'm reaching out to people. I'm showing up. I'm doing service. I'm helping others. Like I'm doing the deal, doing a first step in another program. Not fun. Doing it though. Doing it. Put pen to paper to just this morning. So, yeah. So it says we're then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. I'm one of those people. I was never tempted to drink when I was happy. I don't know what leads everyone to drink. If there's a state of mind that is dangerous for you, for me, it's extreme pain. It's feeling so much pain that I can't stand how I feel. That's when I think, oh, maybe I'll drink. And I had a fleeting thought in the past 2 weeks, literally just laying in bed thinking about how broken I feel over some stuff. And it crossed my mind and it scared me. I mean, it really did, and I started praying right away. I was like, God, help me, you know. But I've seen people that, they get too excited and they forget that they're an alcoholic, right? And they stop doing stuff. They stop doing the things that, the ego comes back and says, hey, I got this. Everything's great. Let's go. Not making foolish decisions. I can be very impulsive. And I've learned that about myself. And I think it's important that we know how our stuff shows up. Sometimes it's led me to all kinds of fun stuff. I'll tell you all a story when we're not on a recording at some point, but sometimes I'm just horrified. I'm like, I can't believe you just blurted that out, Elizabeth. Like, it's funny. It's humorous to people who love me that I do this sometimes, but I just have to slow down sometimes and think about what I'm saying. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. I touched on this in a previous meeting about a chaotic situation I had to handle, and then the next day I was thinking about it all, but I realized I wasn't tired, and I thought, wow, because I used to use up all the brain chemistry that I had on everything that wasn't in the moment. I couldn't match calamity with serenity because I was already out of serenity. I didn't have any. It was already gone. Practicing staying in the moment, turning to God over and over all day. What's next, God? How can I be close to you and perform your work right now? What's next? How can I, and a friend of mine at one point, there was some chaos and some discord going on in my home group. And they said, next. And I kind of like that because I don't need to dwell on things. God's going to handle the outcome of things. I do my best. And I ask God, how can I be a servant to you? How can I show up and do your will? What do I do right now? And then I leave the outcomes up to God, do my very best. And I try to be honest, open, all the things that we try to do here. And doesn't mean I mean, it just doesn't matter. Like, I'm going to be who I'm going to be, and it's going to help somebody or not, or I was talking earlier, sometimes I'm an example of who not to be, for sure, and that's when we get here, our story isn't about us anymore. It's about helping somebody else. And it might be helping them to like not be who you are. I don't want to do what she did. Oh my gosh, you know, but it's okay. Um, and I don't tire easily when I'm not dwelling on things. That's been really hard for me lately, to not get mired in really not wanting to see the truth, but realizing that I need to see the truth and just keep moving forward. Because part of me really wants to not see it. And that's been tiring. I mean, I've been really tired. I can't wait to get in bed tonight already. And I think that just comes along with intense emotions. So I'm giving myself a break on that one, and allowing myself to take good care and do the self-care stuff and all that good stuff. And that's important too. I know there's no point in beating myself up about anything. I'm who I am. I'm showing up today. I'm doing the best I can. Um, when I first got here, all I did was beat myself up. I didn't know that the voice in my head was actually my mom's, and she was very critical because that's what she grew up with. And I had to fire that voice. That's not who my God wants me to be today. We were all made exactly who we are. We are all here with our own story, our own strengths, you know, what each of us has something to offer, in different ways to the next suffering alcoholic. Some of the hardest things I've been through are the things that have helped others the most, is to share those transparently. And I love speakers that share transparently about what's going on, and not 20 years ago, like today. What are you struggling with today? How are you using the steps? How are you applying them in your life? This is all about application. I also hit a place where I realized I left it all in the book. You know, I could speak on all this stuff, but I wasn't actually using it. I could sound great. Academically, I'm pretty good, but how am I really using it? Where's your what do they call it? For warts and freckles and all. Show me what's really going on. That's the language of the heart, you know. I can't sit here. I wish I could sit here and pretend to be perfect. It's just I can't. I never had a poker face anyway. People know when I'm upset. Um, but I'm so grateful to have a program today. I don't know what I would do without it. There's no way I'd be sober. There's literally no way I'd be sober. I have gone through some of the worst feelings, and the worst things, and I would have been drunk for sure. I'm so grateful for every part of this program, the fellowship, the people, people who've reached out to me, people that I reach out to, have been on the other end. And service keeps me showing up, suit up and show up. I traveled for AA for only the second time this past weekend and spoke. I was their Friday night speaker, and I don't really have a thrilling drunk-a-log anyway. I just sort of, I share how I'm using the steps in my life. I try to get to that as quickly as I can. I do the background part a little bit, but I was honest with them. I told them a little bit about what was happening and how I was trying to use the program in my life to deal with it. And I got a lot of great feedback all weekend long, and it was very different than the other speakers. And you know what? That's okay. I decided that a long time ago. We each share in our own point of view and in our own language how we established our relationship with God. And mine might be a little different than some other people's, and that's okay. You know, I'm not here to help the people that aren't, like I can't help everyone, but I help the people who have similar to me, hitting walls in later sobriety and realizing, oh my God, this is so painful. If I don't use the program, I'm going to drink again at 37 years. Like I have to use it. It's not a choice for me today. It's too painful not to. And I called my sponsor crying yesterday. I was just like, I can't stand how this feels. What do I do? And she said, it took me a really long time to forgive myself for some of the stuff that I did. And she said, I don't know, it just took a long time. And I'm like, well, great. I wanted a fast answer, but it was all right. It was kind of funny, actually. Um, And the last thing I'll say, because we're about out of time, is trying to arrange life to suit me. I did that for years. I lived on page 61 in the book, and I didn't even know that that's what I was doing. I didn't know. A lot of things society teaches us, achieve, do all this stuff, and it doesn't work for an alcoholic that needs to be humble and have a spiritual experience and have a new spiritual experience. I can't rely on one from 30 years ago. I have to continue to grow. My sponsor said, you have to continue to grow. There's no maintenance here. The disease isn't maintaining, it's keeping on going. I better keep having a new experience with the literature. And that's why we come to studies like this, right? Now I'm hooked on this Monday deep dive. I'm going to keep coming back. So thank you so much, Howard and Kathy, for having me. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. That's it.
Thank you. I'm going to unmute everybody and let loose the dogs of war here. There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good
Elizabeth.
job.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Elizabeth.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
All right,
Great
great job.
podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Fantastic.
Great message. Great message. Thank you so much.
God bless you, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Oh, shit.
Give you all a couple of minutes to, let me first of all mute everyone, give you some time to think about it. Elizabeth, that was great. This paragraph is so rich. I'm a bit of an idiot and I need little tricks to remember things by. So the way I remember the directions here is the 11th step is about pars, P-A-R-S, pause, ask, remind ourselves, and say many times throughout the day, thy will be done. It's the only way I'm going to remember to do it. I have a similar one for the 10th step, but that's neither here nor there. It's just that this is so important. And I love the fact that you emphasized pause. I think that's the most under-discussed word in this book. And I think it's one of the most important words in the book. There's no price that you could put on that. Pause just before you do something stupid, just before you do anything, pause. And I love that right after pause, Bill says we constantly remind ourselves that we're no longer running the show. We are reminding ourselves because we're using our God-given brains. Remember earlier, Bill said that God gave us brains to use. Well, he's reminding us here, I gave you those brains. Use it. Here's the time to use those brains. And the 11th step prayer is 4 words long. Thy will be done. That is so great. It's just, and again, the paragraph contains, we become more efficient. More efficient at what? We have to go back to 77 to remind ourselves that our purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. And then by step 8 and 9, it tells us our function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. And here we now become more efficient at doing the same thing. I love how Bill keeps stringing these things along, and just great stuff. Great stuff. And can't wait till we finish the next couple of lines, but we'll go by a show of hands. Hun, did you want to?
Thanks, Elizabeth. No. Okay.
Okay, let me get the list here. I think, Dina, you had your hand up first. Go for it.
All right. Thank you so much, Howard. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for your lead. And I'm Dina Alcoholic.